I have put together 4 of the best farming tips for farming in Minecraft, and if you follow all of them, they can increase the production speed of your farms by over 2 times. You'll want to stay for tip number 3 because not many people know about that one. I mean, I only learned about it the other day, but that tip alone will double your farming outputs. Please note that I got all of this information from the Minecraft wiki. I'll leave a link in the description. Tip number 1. A lot of people like to make their farms like this or this, with water placed in lines along all of your farmland. But this is actually a very inefficient use of land. Now, some of you may already know this, but water buckets can hydrate farmland as far as 4 blocks away in every direction, making a design like this a far more efficient use of your land. Tip number 2. So the second tip is for those that have multiple farms like this that happen to be a little bit apart like this. What you're going to want to do is push these farms together like this so that they're touching. Now, the reason for this is because of the way that Minecraft determines when to grow a crop to the next growth stage. How it works is that every time one of these crops experiences a random tick, there is a certain % chance that that random tick will cause it to grow. One of the main factors that determines this % chance is the amount of farmland surrounding each piece of farmland. This means that crops that have more surrounding farmland in the 8 blocks around it have a higher % chance of growth per random tick. The % values of the blocks that are at the edges of these farms look like this when they are apart. But after pushing them together, they look like this. If you want to know how I calculated these numbers, I explain all of that at the end of the video. Tip number 3. I bet the majority of you probably have your farms like this, where every single block of farmland has your crop of choice placed on it and is completely full of that crop. But this design for your farm actually halves the production speed of every single crop here. The way that Mojang made it, it's actually more efficient to have your crops placed in rows like this. They made it so that farms that go in anything other than straight lines have their efficiency halved. So having farms with turns like this or diagonals like this all half the speed. But having farms in straight lines like these don't do that. One thing to note though, and this is very important, is that each crop cannot be halved more than once, and that this halving of production speed only occurs as long as the crops placed in these formations are the same kind of crop. So this means that you can make your farms in alternating rows with another crop like this and not have the efficiency cut in half. And so this can be pretty huge because this would make a farm like this just as efficient as a farm like this. And just to prove that this works, you can see in this test that I did that the farm on the right grows much faster than the farm on the left. Tip number 4. I often see a lot of people building their pumpkin and melon farms like this, but this is not the most efficient way to build these kinds of farms. If you take a look over here, you can see that this design capitalizes off of tip number 1 with a single water bucket, but also by planting your pumpkins and melons in this checkerboard formation, this actually increases production speed by 5 times. Now the reason for this is because the factors that determine the % chance that a pumpkin or melon grows per random tick are the amount of available blocks around a vine that it can grow a pumpkin or melon to, as well as the amount of farmland in the 8 blocks surrounding the vine. So if we use this chart provided by the Minecraft wiki, we can see that for this farm, these vines on the inside have a 5% chance of growing per random tick, since they have 2 surrounding farmland and only 1 block to grow to. And the edges have an 8.33% chance of growing per random tick since they have 1 surrounding farmland with 2 blocks to grow to. But if we head over to this farm, if we look at the more central vines, you can see that they have a 25% chance to grow per random tick since they have 4 blocks to grow to and 4 surrounding farmland. The edges have a 20% chance of growth per random tick since they have 4 blocks to grow to and 2 surrounding farmland. And then the corners have a 16.67% chance of growth per random tick since they have 4 blocks to grow to, as well as having 1 surrounding farmland. So if you're going for efficiency, this would be the design to go for, but I would definitely understand why some of you may want to stick to simpler designs since it's much easier to harvest. There are also a few drawbacks that show up if you do decide to harvest these manually instead of automatically. One drawback is that the more these pumpkins and melons grow, they take up blocks that surrounding vines could have grown to, which will slow down those surrounding vines, making the farm ultimately slow down over time, unless each pumpkin or melon is harvested immediately after it grows. And if a particular vine is unlucky enough like this one, it can be completely boxed in by the surrounding plants, meaning that it has nowhere to grow to. This is why most automatic pumpkin and melon farm designs use these checkerboard patterns. They get the boost of being 5 times faster, and they don't get the gradual slowdown since the crops are harvested immediately. So if you're ever looking for an automatic pumpkin or melon farm design, looking for designs that resemble this pattern here is your best bet. And just to show these characteristics that I just described, you can see in this test that I did that the farm on the right grows much faster than the farm on the left initially, but slows down over time. This isn't my design, by the way. I'll put a link in the description. The math. To calculate the percent chance of growth per random tick for a given piece of farmland, you have to use this equation. I'll go ahead and walk you through this equation since it might be a little confusing. So for the points here, every piece of farmland is given a certain amount of points based on a few factors. The highest amount of points a piece of farmland can have is 10, and the lowest is 2. To calculate these points for a given piece of farmland, you can give it 2 points if it's dehydrated or give it 4 points if it's hydrated. Now, if you look at the surrounding 8 blocks around that piece of farmland, you're going to want to add 0.25 points for each dehydrated piece of farmland and 0.75 for each hydrated piece of farmland. So if we go over to this farm here and take a look at this piece of farmland right here, we can see that it is hydrated, so we add 4 points to the point total and 0.75 for each of the 8 surrounding farmland. And that gives us a total of 10 points. Now, going back to the equation, we need to divide 25 by the amount of points we calculated. So this gives us 2.5 inside the parentheses. Now, this floor function basically means that you need to round downwards and basically just cut off this decimal portion of the number you get. So this turns our 2.5 into a 2. Then we go ahead and add the 1 to the 2, and now we are left with 1/3, or 33.33%. But since this crop doesn't follow the straight line rule, we also have to divide this in half, so we get 16.67%. So every time a random tick hits this crop, there is a 16.67% chance that this crop will progress to the next growth stage. But if we look over here at this piece of farmland, it has the same amount of points, and it does follow the straight line rule. So this gives us a 33.33% chance of growth per random tick. Now that concludes all 4 tips that I had. I hope you all enjoyed and learned something from this video. If you did, go ahead and like and subscribe for more tutorials, and go ahead and check out my Let's Play series if you haven't already. But anyway, that's it. Have a wonderful day.